Let's talk a bit about character witnesses. What do I mean by that? Well, say somebody is up for sentencing, and we get to what we call mitigation. That's where the defence say, try to minimise the sentence. Um, it's not uncommon for people to get friends or employers, people like that, or people that, they work with in other capacities, to write to the court to say what a nice chap this, or chapess, the defendant is, with a view to sort of, mitigating and reducing the sentence. How effective is that? Now, to be perfectly honest, the general consensus at the bar is that they actually have no impact whatsoever. And I've spoken to judges about this, and the judge said to me, he said, it's a poor do if you can't get three friends to lie about what a nice guy you are. So, as to how effective, well, I would say the jury's out, but the jury seems to have returned a verdict on that. A key thing to remember is that we now have lots of sentencing guidelines. And it's almost, another judge described this to me as sentencing by effing spreadsheet. But what that is, you look up the offence, and it sort of breaks it down. It provides a starting point for sort of quotes the average sort of offence, and then it'll have higher levels for the more serious versions and lower levels for the less serious versions. Then there's lots of specific bits of things that are either aggravating or mitigating factors. And you've also got general aggravating and mitigating factors that apply to all offences. So a lot of the time now, mitigation, because the prosecutor is supposed to, set out what the sentencing guidelines are. It's a convention in England and Wales that prosecutors never seek a particular sentence. They never sort of argue that it should be, a higher sentence or anything like that. They just say, we suggest that, it falls within this level on the sentencing guidelines. Obviously, the defence may challenge that. But then we come to sort of like personal mitigation. And there's this idea of what we call the social balance sheet. So if in your life you've generally been a decent person and you've been doing something positive for society, then that should be taken into account, because the whole point of crimes they are offences against society as a whole. I mean, we've discussed in other videos that, the victim is just another witness. So the idea is that, yes, you have wronged society now, but you've got a bit of social credit because of things you've done in the past. But, although barristers can't give evidence, in mitigation it's not uncommon for us to sort of, set out and say, look, this person, coaches at a local football club, or, once rescued somebody who was drowning, and, things like that. And judges will usually just take our word for it, because, as long as we've got a decent basis to make, our instructions are such we can make that, and we've satisfied ourselves, we don't mislead the court on behalf of our clients. So yeah, you don't really need anybody to come forward and actually give evidence on that. But let's say you do want to say something nice about somebody, or you've been invited to and you feel sort of socially obligated. How do you go about that? Well, you can do it as a sort of witness statement, but generally they're in the form of letters. And you address the letter to the judge, or if it's in the magistrates, to the bench. So, dear presiding magistrate, dear judge. If you're doing it in an official capacity, do it on letter-headed note paper. If you're just doing it in a personal capacity, at least, type your address out, and do try to type them. I mean, people, obviously, handwritten ones do go in, but you're trying to make an impression here. So, set it out, as nicely as you can. Explain who you are, briefly. You don't need to do your full autobiography. Explain how you know the defendant. So it could be, we have been friends for 20 years, or he has been my employee for 5 years, or he's been helping out at the soup kitchen since I arrived there, 2 years ago, something like that. So that the judge can have an idea of, how well do you know this person? Because if I'm going to put any sort of, give any sort of traction to what you're saying, I need to be satisfied that you're actually sort of, you know what you're talking about. But yeah, then just set out sort of, briefly why this person is a sort of decent cove. Things not to do. Don't get a big rows about, don't protest this person's innocence. Don't say that the charges were wrong. Don't get into all victim blaming or anything like that. I mean, usually it's good to actually acknowledge, the offending. when I found out about this, I was shocked because this is not the Joe blogs that I know. That something, something like that. You need to sort of, acknowledge that, we're at the sentencing stage. You can theoretically give that character evidence orally. You could go into the witness box, swear the oath, and do it. I mean, that's relatively uncommon just because of how busy courts are, and the fact that normally it's done by letter. But there are situations, especially when you're at court and somebody's just been convicted and being sentenced straight away, and you've got his sobbing mum, in the public gallery, and she wants to say a few words, or his grandmother wants to say, how he does all his, her shopping and things like that. Then yeah, you can do it. But here's the thing to remember: these things are being submitted as evidence, and that makes them public documents, and that means they are disclosable. So you can't write and say, dear judge, I want to say nice things about somebody, but don't tell anybody, please don't reveal this letter. That letter, is available on request. And this actually cropped up. You may recall a lot of politicians gave character evidence for some sort of dubious ex-colleague. And then when they found out that, actually the press want these letters, it was like they tried to suppress them because obviously standing up for some sort of extremely sketchy person wasn't going to be very, very good for their public image. But this went all the way to the Supreme Court, who confirmed what we all knew anyway, which is no, sorry. The whole point is you're sort of putting your neck on the block for this person, so put your money where your mouth is. Yeah, so remember that. So there you go. So in summary, character evidence, is it worth it? Probably not. Um, and if you do write something nice about somebody that nobody else likes, people are going to find out about that. So there you go. If you found that useful, interesting, mildly diverting or whatever, please consider clicking the like button, subscribing and sharing this.